What's up guys, John the More Guy here, checking in for a flat earth video for you. Today's going to be a video response to a video that I saw on WaykiWayki's channel, reposted very recently, and that's why I'm making this sort of response. But apparently the original video was crafted by Matrix Decode, and Matrix Decode and I sort of go way back. I mean, I've never met the dude physically, but one of the first sort of public appearances that I made was on the Ball Earth Skeptics show, and Matrix Decode and good old JLB, John LeBon, were sort of affiliated with that. So I've known him for a minute, and I've always appreciated his work, and so it is a bit stunning to see people like Matrix Decode and WaykiWayki going full-on globetard. But let's get into the video, and I'm going to respond in kind. Pause it and comment as we see necessary. But I will say, no animosity or anything towards any, either of these guys. Matrix Decode for making such garbage, and WaykiWayki for reposting such garbage and titling it Flat Earth Debunked, or I guess you could say subtitling it Flat Earth Debunked. But let's get into it. We'll see what happens. And I guess I will also be sort of narrating this because neither of the two, or as far as I know, anybody has actually put verbal words to this video, so it's all just sort of typed out, and I'll do my best to try to narrate it as we go. So let's see how this works. It will probably take me 5 days to upload it the way this internet goes here, but let's see. Planet Earth, the rotating sphere. Boy. The geometry of the following observations matches the sphere model and is impossible on any flat Earth model. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, so now, I'll be honest, before we get started, and I guess I'm going to have to back this up, and I'll play it and pause it. I guess I can spacebar it. The rotating sphere. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so the geometry of the following observations matches the sphere model and is impossible on any flat Earth model. Now, okay, so what I'll say about this is basically I have not watched this whole video. I've only watched about the first 15 minutes of it, and what I saw had nothing to do with geometry. It had to do with observations of space, or observations of the celestial objects, or, in other words, observations of the heavens. And inherently, one thing we need to get straight is the heavens and the celestial objects, the wonders of this world, are not directly measurable. They're not directly tangible. So they are very much in the realm of theory. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways you can interpret things like starlight and the motion of the wandering stars or the planets and sunrise and sunset. The thing is, though, nobody's ever gone to these places to verify any one theory, right? So it remains sort of unattainable, unknowable, and it remains a mystery. So my point, though, is the opening statement of this video says geometry, and I will remind the viewer that the word geometry literally means measure the earth. Okay, geo, which means the world, metri, from the Greek, measure, and if you put them together, it means measure the earth. Okay, so I will be very much surprised if this full-on globetard video does anything about measuring the earth. It appears, because their linchpin sort of jump-off point argument has to do with celestial observations, that we're merely dealing with celestial observations, not physical measurement of the earth. So to open this with a bit of a misnomer, and maybe I'm proven wrong, if we start measuring the earth later on in this video, I will concede this point, but that remains to be seen, and I would be very surprised if I have to. But I will if necessary. So let's go. Okay, so in this video, I guess I better pause it. In this video, they say 1, the size and the geometry of the sun and moon and stars. Okay, so, and of course, you can use the term geometry for measuring other things, but you have to be able to measure these things, right? And in order to measure a thing, you sort of have to look at it from a couple of different angles. It has to be a tangible thing, and by the very nature, the sun, moon, and stars are non-tangible things, if you can even really call them things, because we don't know if they're even things. So anyway, 1, the size and geometry of the sun, moon, and stars, which is a loaded statement. 2, the long-distance observations, Gibraltar and Morocco from Spain. And 3, the light refraction phenomenon and mirages. And 4, ships and boats over the horizon. So we've definitely heard about all these before. Long-distance observation of what? I'm not sure what they're saying on number 2 here. Number 3, light refraction and phenomenon and mirages. And I will mention that number 3 here is completely overlooked right in the beginning of this video, and I will point it out. But they mentioned the assumed distances of the sun according to the sphere Earth and according to the flat Earth. And they mention one as 93 miles and the latter as about 3,000 miles, right? However, they forget to include the phenomenon, the natural phenomenon of refraction, into those assumptions. And so they are altogether omitting refraction of light when it's convenient for this argument, and they're mentioning refraction of light as one of their linchpin top 4 arguments of the whole video. So answer me this question. How can you ignore refraction on something big, however, also include refraction as something big in your dissertation? To me, that is a contradiction, and I will prove this. I will prove this here in just a minute, because it's right in the very beginning of this video. I've only watched the first 10 minutes or so. And so this, the point number 3 about refraction is, well, it's just a bit of a red flag to me as the casual observer who knows better. And number 4, ships and boats over the horizon. So let's see what kind of new information or lack of understanding, which one is it? It's either one or the other, because I know all about ships and boats over the horizon, and I understand exactly how it works. So either there's some new information that I'm not privy to, or the maker of this video and proponents for this video have a lack of understanding that I understand to be true and feel to be very obvious and explainable, and anyone can understand it as long as they get the principles involved. So let's go. I know I'm droning on, but good God, why am I having to make this sort of video in response to WaykiWayki? Wow. And he just put out some excellent work proving that theoretical physicists are essentially what I've been saying the whole time, theoretical hyperbolists, or hypothetical surrealists, or hyperbolic head in the assifists. So we're continuing on, and forgive any background noise. Okay, so the size and geometry of the sun, moon, stars. Size and geometry of the sun. Distant Earth sphere model, they say, is 93 million miles. So this goes pretty quick, and I guess I will have to pause this pretty frequently because, wow, this is a 40-minute video to begin with, and you know how my responses go. If this ends up being too long, I'm going to have to break it up into sections because the way this internet is here, it doesn't upload things well at all, like hardly worth a damn. So okay, so in simulation not to scale, they're talking about the view from the sun, the globe Earth model here. No angular size changes, and I wish they would have been more explicit. Like, this seems like something that somebody put together that just has very vague and abstract issues against the flat Earth understanding, and they have a very firm belief in the globe Earth model. And so instead of explaining their case, they're just sort of listing out abstract concepts that are in debate as far as I'm concerned, and the debate has been settled a long time ago. So when they say number 1 here, top left, no angular size changes, I believe they're talking about the view not from the sun, as it says very big bold in the bottom, but the view of the sun. The view of the sun, according to these different models, there should be angular size changes, and there are none. Number 1, no angular size changes. And it should say, of the sun during its daily course through the sky or whatever. You know, it's like the old, if you answered an explanational math question back in the day when you're in school, and it says if Jimmy has 2 apples and he eats one, how many apples does Jimmy have? And of course the answer is 1 apple, right? Because if your answer is just 1, then you get it wrong. Your answer has to be 1 apple. It can't just be the number, because the number doesn't define anything. It has to be the 1 apple. Do you guys remember that? I certainly do. Right? So the number 1, no angular size changes, should say exactly what it is they're talking about, because maybe we're talking about apples? No, I think that they're talking about the sun. Which is misleading, because at the bottom of the slide here you see view from the sun. But I guess that's what we're led to believe that we're looking at. I don't know. So 1, no angular size changes, assuming of the sun. 2, sun sets below the horizon due to Earth's rotation. 3, appears equidistant from the observer all day. Okay, so what they're saying is, I get it now. So according to the sphere-Earth model, we should expect to see no angular size changes. Sun sets below the horizon due to the Earth's rotation. The sun appears equidistant from the observer all day. So these slides are very misleading in terms of what it is they're coming across with, especially with no narration. So now that we've spent, I don't know, way too much time on this first slide, we understand what they're getting across with their 1, 2, 3 thing here. They're saying this is what we should expect to see according to the ball Earth model. Right? Okay, got it. Okay, still the same 1, 2, 3, just different little visuals of spheres. Okay, great. All right, so here we go. Sunrise, we're talking about equinox sunrise angle, celestial equator, matches my latitude of 36.5 degrees north, Malaga, if I'm saying that right, Spain. Okay, so they're saying that the sun appears to rise and set as it should, according to the ball Earth model. And I would say, of course it does, because the ball Earth model has been crafted around observations. So of course observations would match the ball Earth model. Now the problem is, however, is that there are big problems in the ball Earth model, like specifically magnetic declination, in terms of what is exactly 90 degrees east. And I think that Jeranism has done an excellent job of demonstrating exactly the problem with this, is that 90 degrees east is sort of a fluctuating thing depending on where you are in the world. Okay, so basically because of magnetic declination, you need to alter what your 90 degrees east is. And by the way, that 90 degrees east is always altered towards where the sun sets on the equinox. Okay? So the fact that the sun sets at 90 degrees east, according to all sorts of very complex systems like Google Maps and stuff, is not a big surprise, because the entire thing is a deception created around observations, and the deception is created to match the observations. So the fact that observations match the ball Earth model is not a surprise, and the fact that we have things like major magnetic declination to support the ball Earth model in different points on the world is a big red flag that you need to look into before you go making videos like this. And you know, thank God Jeranism was able to discern that and share that with people, because it makes perfect sense. And I'm not sure how you guys could have missed that, but we'll keep going. So they say basically equinox, sunset, sunrise, same thing, different time of day. Okay, local near flat model, 3,000 miles or lower. So now I'm not sure what we're talking about, 3,000 miles or lower. We'll see if, look how hard it is to back this up. Maybe if yeah, let's do this. Okay, so if I back this up to right where we were just at. Yeah, local near flat model, 3,000 miles or lower. So like, I wish that you guys, and I understand what whoever made this video means by this, but I believe we're talking about the sun. So you should say that the flat Earth model dictates that the sun is 3,000 miles or lower. And in fact, I would wholeheartedly disagree for several reasons. And the first big reason is, and I guess I better just get this point on out the way because I'm going to reference this point throughout, and we'll call this the Eratosthenes conundrum. Okay, so Eratosthenes, back in ancient Greece, allegedly used the assumption that the Earth is a ball in order to use triangulation data, essentially of the sun, in two different locations at the same time, Syene and Alexandria, which are about 1,000 miles apart, hundreds and hundreds of miles apart, same time, same day, during the equinox, where in one location the shadow of the sun was reflected in a well, a deep well. You could see the reflection of the sun, so you knew it's 90 degrees overhead. And in another position, several hundred miles away, you had a stick in the ground where the shadow cast by the sun gives you an angle from that point towards the sun. And so between these 2 points, you have essentially a right triangle, and you can use triangulation, the Pythagorean theorem, in order to triangulate on the sun. Okay? Now, if you assume that the Earth is a ball and that light only travels in straight lines, you get the distance and you get the assumption that the Earth is a ball with a radius of about 4,000 miles. On the other hand, if you assume that the Earth is not a ball and that the sun is closer, these two triangulation datum actually describe the sun as being about 3,400 miles away. Okay? The problem is, back in this ancient time, even up until the 1500s, there was no understanding of light refraction, so it was not accounted for in the models. So both of these sort of extrapolations of real data that give you two completely different answers, depending on whether you assume the Earth is a ball or you assume the Earth is a flat plane with a local sun. Okay, you get the same data gives you two completely different answers that are perfectly mathematically correct. However, the problem is, in reality, this thing we call reality, right? You can't have both be correct. One or the other can only be correct. Okay? Now, the big problem is, however, when you do not extrapolate or you do not figure refraction into your extrapolations, then you have what is called incorrect answers on both ends of this. Okay? Neither answer could be correct. And the only way that you could have correct answers on both of these, or either of these, right, hypothetically, is if you understood exactly the refraction index. Okay? And that, my friends, really only God would ever know. Because you can estimate refraction indexes based on models, but until some major actual scientific testing is done about refraction indexes over varying media, varying magnetic fields, varying temperatures that the atmosphere and the world definitely has, then we are in the dark, my friends. We're in the dark. And so the point here that I'm making is the assumption that the sun is a physical object about 3,000 miles in altitude or lower, as they say in this slide here. That is such a ridiculous assumption because first of all, we don't even know what the sun is. We're led to believe that it is a ball object flying around in space. However, I have seen no evidence for that, and the point is, you will never see evidence for that, because nobody's ever going to the sun. Ever. Never going to happen. So let's keep going. Sunrise at zenith flat Earth model. Okay, so this is this is so funny. So what they're saying we should expect. So, and there should be a narrator for this ridiculous globetarded video. But they're saying that basically we should expect constant angular size changes all day on a flat Earth. We should expect the sun to never set below the horizon, right? We should expect 3 curves to the right A from sunrise to zenith to sunset. curves to the, I guess the A is a typo. So curves to the right from sunrise to zenith, to sunset from northern hemisphere, and curves to the left from southern hemisphere. So let's watch this little. There's a little GIF here. You saw it, but I'll try to play it again. We'll back it up. So there it is. There's the GIF. That's what we should expect on a flat Earth, because the sun is a physical object. We all know the sun is a physical object that has to travel over your head, and it has to be smaller when it's further away, and it has to get bigger and bigger and bigger when it's closer, because perspective. Because we all know how perspective works, and we do. That's true. Our eyes, our minds see this world in perspective. However, there's a few problems with this. Okay. Now, first of all, even assuming the Eratosthenes conundrum values of the flat Earth sun are correct, right, then it's about a 30-mile diameter object, 30 miles in altitude. Now, one big problem is we've never seen a 30-mile diameter object 3,000 miles away. Not 30 and 30, 30 and 3,000. Forgive me. Nobody's ever seen a 30-mile diameter object some 30,000 miles away. 3,000 miles away, right? And so this is all very much in a different realm of perspective, right? So perspective is going to apply differently to such a large and distantly removed object that it would appear foreign to us. Okay, because we understand perspective on a very localized scale within our very local subjective environment. Okay, but when you have something that's hypothetically, again, we're assuming the Eratosthenes conundrum is correct, which I'm telling you it couldn't be, but assuming that sort of flat Earth sun is correct, then it would be foreign to anything that we can observe in our local reality, because again, it's a very massive object. So the laws of perspective would apply differently. Now, when you couple that with the fact that we have an atmosphere, so if we lived in a vacuum, then I would actually agree with a lot of the statements on this list, on this slide right here, if there were no atmosphere, and assuming that the sun is a ball some 3,000 miles in distance. Okay, this would make a lot of sense. However, when you add the atmosphere and as well the magnetosphere, because yes, varying temperature atmosphere will change the trajectory of light, varying density atmosphere will change the trajectory of light, as well as varying magnetic fields will change the trajectory of light. And so what we have is basically and there's other things too. You have literally tubes of ionized plasma in the lower magnetosphere, and ionically charged gases will change the trajectory of light, and do all sorts of strange things to light. It will magnify it and scatter it and refract it. It is basically like a pinball game of light going on between our eye and the sun. And for people to assume that first the sun must be a physical object, and it must be in motion above essentially a vacuum that doesn't do any, light always travels in straight lines. That's the two assumptions. The two assumptions are that light always travels in straight lines, and the sun is necessarily a ball traveling overhead. And what I'm telling you is both of those assumptions, these premises, must be checked because of the exact reasons that you guys are pointing out here. So your conclusion, though, however, I would mention is way off. Way off. Because when you measure the Earth for curvature, when you practice the science of geometry, there is no such curvature. And so what's going on in the heavens is essentially a slideshow of the creator. But if you see a mountain on a movie screen projected in front of you, like you go to a theater and you see a mountain on the movie screen, well, that mountain must be real because you see it, right? Give me a break. I mean, what? Until somebody travels to a star or to a planet, and not NASA, not the lying Nazi Freemasons of NASA, but actual people travel to a star or a planet and bring back samples of the sun and measure it. This is all very much conjecture. Wow, I don't even know how long this has been going. Let's see how this uploads. No, we'll keep going for a minute because this is absolute nonsense. But so anyway, the whole way we got onto this was this GIF. So they're saying that we should expect the sun to increase in angular size as it goes overhead during noon, and decrease in angular size if the Earth were flat. But I would say that is true if you lived in a vacuum and if you assume that the sun is a physical object. Okay, so we'll leave it at that, and we will do more of these, but I just want to see how this records and uploads because I'm trying some new equipment. And by the way, I want to thank everybody out there that has supported on PayPal and Patreon. You guys are the best. I love y'all. Thank you so much. And if you would like to support the channel on PayPal or Patreon, you can do so at www.paypal.me/themorgile or www.patreon.com/themorgile. All right, so this will be a test and more to come for sure. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next turn.